This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. We are here with Campanian winemaker Marco Giulioli, who's joining us from La Guardiense in Campania. How are you today, sir?
I'm okay. Thank you for your invitation.
Oh, no, lovely to see you again. Now, if you could give us a very short explanation of your cooperative and what you do in Campania.
Okay. The cooperative name is La Guardiense. We are talking about a cooperative with 1,000 members and 1,500 hectares. It's the largest winery in Campania region. Myself, I'm the winemaker of this cooperative, and I work in a team that is, how do you say, there is at the top of this team, Riccardo Cotarella, which is the most important Italian winemaker.
The godfather of the region, for sure.
That's right, for sure. Where is La Guardiense? La Guardiense is in Campania for sure, but where exactly? We are inland. We are not close to the seaside. We are not close to Naples. We are far from Naples, 60 kilometers. So we are 60 kilometers in the northern area of Campania region in the inland. Our area is a very specific and interesting area also for viticulture, also because of the soil that we have in our area. In this area, we don't have only clay and calcareous soil or sandy soil, but there is a special part of the valley, the western part of the valley, that is made of volcanic soil. Now, the big question is, how is it possible to have a volcanic soil? The closest volcano is 60 kilometers from us.
Wow.
When you think about a volcano in Campania region, you usually think about Vesuvius, but Vesuvius is not as powerful as sending material 60 kilometers far from its central area. So it's not Vesuvius that gave us the volcanic material, but it's another very important volcano that is called Campi Flegrei. It's
and
not
this
just
is a super volcano, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
This is not a normal volcano. It's what we call a super volcano. Just to let everybody understand, it's like the Yellowstone. So it's something very big, it's huge. Now, one of the last time this super volcano exploded, it was 39 years ago, 39,000 years ago. Sorry for it.
I was just thinking, I never heard about that happening. So, yeah.
39,000 years ago. So something big happened. This super volcano of Campi Flegrei exploded, and the powerful of this explosion was so big that the material, the very hot material, arrived until the inland of Campania region, many kilometers far from the central part of the volcano. So in the western part of our valley, we have what we call Ignimbrite Campana. Ignimbrite Campana is the material that was coming from that volcano, okay? What we also call in Italian tufo. So this material coming from that volcano, it didn't really go all over in the valley, but just in the western part of the valley. So what happened? What happened is that in our valley, a few meters far one from the other, with the same microclimate, we have different kind of soil. We have the volcanic soil, we have the sandy soil that is connected to the river that is crossing the valley, and we also have the hilly area that is made of clay and calcareous soil. So a few meters far from the other, one from the other, we have different kind of soil that give different style, different kind of wine to the cooperative, to the valley.
Now, you are the world's biggest producer of the Falanghina grape. For those people perhaps less familiar with the Falanghina grape, would you mind giving us a 101 on the Falanghina grape?
Yeah, Now, what is Falanghina? Falanghina is a variety that is coming originally from our area, from the Sannio area. So Sannio is the small part of Campania region. So what we call an autochthonous variety of Campania region is coming from here. You cannot really find Falanghina somewhere else in the world. Obviously now there are some Falanghinas coming out from Italy or from some other parts of the world, but Falanghina is coming from Campania. Falanghina is a variety that it could be, in relation to the kind of soil, also generous, because if you produce Falanghina in the sandy soil, you will have an important production. It's not going to be a low yield, it's going to be a quite high yield. That is very important because it's really helping us to produce wines coming from Falanghina that are perfect to produce sparkling wines.
Right.
So Falanghina is a suitable variety also for sparkling wines. If you select the grapes and the vineyards that are in the area close to the river with a sandy soil, okay? Then Falanghina, it's also a variety that in the hilly area, because of the different soil, because of the different microclimatic conditions, you can have an higher alcohol, you can have always a quite nice, very quite high acidity, that it's really helping you to produce a wine that is with a nice body, with a good body, but at the same time always very fresh. Because the soil condition, because the variety in that specific soil, it's really helping us to produce wines with body, with alcohol, but with at the same time with the right freshness. Then the magical part, if you move from the calcareous clay soil to the volcanic soil,
right,
you will have a completely different style. So in the same area, two different wines, two completely different wines. The reason is that the grapes that are coming from vineyards they root in the volcanic material, they react in a completely different way. They produce a wine that is with another style, with another color. So it's not because of the technique that we use for the vinification, that obviously is always very important. It's not because of the different ripening, different harvests that we make. It's just because of the soil. So the soil is gonna really change the style and the character of your wine.
I guess there is a correlation with Riesling here, because like Riesling, Falanghina is a great conduit for terroir.
That's really true. Riesling, as we know, it's a variety that you can find all over in the world, basically. But wherever you go, you will find a Riesling with a different style because of the climate, because of the soil. Mm-hmm. So it's a variety that is really reacting to the different condition it finds, giving a different style, a different kind of wines. Falanghina is the same. There is also a small production of Falanghina in the area of the Campi Flegrei. So we are talking about close to the coast of Campania. So the two Falanghinas, they're very different one from the other, because the Falanghina that is coming from the coast, it has less acidity. It's a wider wine, but it's less fresh. Yes. So two different style of wine, a few kilometers far, one from the other, but just imagine two different wine, a few meters one from the other, if you change the soil. This is so exciting for us because we have been doing a great job of zonation that it's really helping us to create, to understand how complex are the soils that we have under our vineyards. And it's really helping us to produce wines with a different character thanks to the different soil that is under the vineyard, is under the roof.
Now, with this mapping of these different terroirs within your region, we have a selection of 3 different Falanghina here that we're going to taste through. The first one here, tell us a little bit about this. This is the Falanghina del Sannio.
Exactly. This is Falanghina del Sannio. Falanghina del Sannio Janare. Janare is the brand, the best brand of production of La Guardiense.
Right.
So Janare is our top brand. This wine is coming from a wider selection of different kind of soil coming from all over the valley. So we're not talking about a small production. We are talking about a large production. This large production is coming always from a selection of the best vineyards in all the different kind of soil of the valley, with the exception of the soil close to the river, because the soil that are close to the river we use only to produce our sparkling wines. So using all the different kind of soils, all the different altitude, all the different way of managing the vineyards, we can select the best vineyards, the best grapes to produce this wine that is an average of all the valley. It's a very interesting wine because it's giving the color, the aroma, and the taste of the original Falanghina, of the Falanghina that people maybe know, people that usually drink Falanghina, usually is more, it's easier that you can find in the glass. It's really an expressive wine, and it's really telling us what is Falanghina.
This is a fantastic introduction to Falanghina for anyone who has never tasted the grape before. I mean, this is a true benchmark for me of what should be in the glass when one is having a Falanghina. What are you looking for when you're looking for a typical Falanghina like this? What kind of aromatics are you trying to draw from your fruit sources, and what kind of mouthfeel are you going for with this wine?
Now, the aromatic expression of this Falanghina must be always fruity, for sure. Mm-hmm. The fruity part is so important. Usually there's a lot of, tropical fruity expression. But at the same time, there's not only the fruity and tropical part, but you also have the floral part. The equilibrium that Falanghina is able to give us, that this Falanghina is able to give us, between the tropical part and the floral part, it creates a wine that has in the nose a nice balance, and is not just a fruity wine or floral wine. There is a lot of complexity. Okay, and what about the mouth? In the mouth, you will find obviously the taste of a southern Italian wine, because you can see the alcohol. The alcohol is 13.5. So it's a wine that is quite wide in the mouth, but at the same time, there is the acidity that is typical for Falanghina that is helping you to keep the mouth fresh. So usually what happens when you drink this Falanghina, you think that you're drinking a Falanghina 12.5. You drink it, you say, wow, this Falanghina it's a very nice, it's drinkable, it's expressive from the aromatic point of view. Then you look at the bottle and you say, wow, I haven't realized that it's 13.5.
It carries that alcohol very, very well, it has to be said. There is a wonderful richness and textural component on the palate of this wine, which is something that I think Falanghina often expresses very well at the quality, at the more quality-oriented Falanghina. But I always love wines with quite a nice weight on the palate, and this definitely has it. But it is showing marvelous equilibrium, as you're saying. There is that ripeness, showing you that it is a Southern Italian wine for sure. But the balance on this is quite exquisite. Very, very good.
Yeah, this is a wine that, as I told you, is coming from different area of the valley, and this is really helping us to keep a very consistent quality year after year. So it's a wine that is not really feeling the differences of the vintage, because the different areas with different soils of the valley, with different altitude, help us to create a wine that usually it's very consistent vintage after vintage.
Moving on to the next wine. Tell us a little bit about this one here. Different type of packaging here. Yes,
the wine is Cenete.
Cenete.
Yeah, Cenete. Cenete is basically the best Falanghina that La Guardiense has ever produced. It's our selection of the best, absolutely the best grapes, absolutely the best parcels for that particular vintage.
Right. So this changes from vintage to vintage, right?
That's the point. Yes. We love a different way of production, which is not only the cru selection, but it's what we call itinerant cru.
Right.
This is so important for us because it's really helping us to keep the quality of our Falanghinas very high, of our wines, generally speaking, very high vintage after vintage. What does it mean? It means that in every vintage, in relation to the weather condition, you have a soil, an altitude that are expressing at the best because of that particular condition, because of that particular vintage. So we are going to select that parcels, that area that are going to give us the maximum results. Usually, this Cenete is made in the area that we call black soils, in Italian, terre nere. There is all the hilly area of our valley that is from 120 up to 450 meters above the sea level. So it's the hilly area coming from the lower part of the hilly area up to the 450 meters. All this area is made of what we call terre nere, black soils. That area is a perfect mix between calcareous and clay soils, with different exposition, with different quantity of water available in relation to the exposition, in relation to the different streams that you can have in the valley. So there are so many different crus that can give us always the best parcels to produce our Cenete. How is Cenete made? Cenete is made with a cryomaceration technique. What is cryomaceration? The cryomaceration is basically a technique that is helping us keeping a low temperature in the first phase of vinification to keep the must, the liquid part, in contact with the skins for maybe 1 hour, maybe 6 hours, not so much. So small, we're talking about hours. A low temperature without oxygen, that is really helping us to increase the quantity of aromatic compounds in the must, so the yeast will be able to create a great aromatic wine thanks to this very rich must. So this technique is helping us to produce a wine with a different kind of expression.
This is a very interesting wine. Would it be fair to say that this was a much more focused wine than the previous one we had? It's much more delineated aromatically, and I think on the palate, there's much more of a kind of almost like a minerally kind of channel in this one as well. I mean, you're talking about the very specific soils we're talking about here, and that really comes through on the palate of this wine for me. So there is the tropical fruits that we did see before, but perhaps a little bit more focused. I'm getting kind of honeysuckle and floral notes on this, but there's also a mineral note on the nose, which was not present in the first wine. Making this wine for me one that's a lot more suited to the dinner table. The other one, of course, you could have at the dinner table, but this one, because of that laser guided acidity on this one, would make it a much more suitable thing for your, to be the grand wine at the dinner table.
Yeah, this is for sure. What you said is perfectly is what I think really about this Falanghina. And there is something more to say, in my point of view, is that this Falanghina, because of the technique that we use to select the grapes, the technique that we use in terms of vinification, it's a wine that has a longer life.
I was about to say.
Yeah, it's a wine that is really lasting for years. It's not a wine that is like the first Falanghina that maybe The second year after the harvesting period, it could be less fresh. Cenete is a wine that keeps the freshness for a longer time. So it's a wine that usually we love to taste also many years after the harvesting, after the vintage. So it's a wine that can give you, how do you say, a special emotion. Also, if you taste maybe 5 years after, we did it even for 2009 vintage after 12 years. So we did several tastings of our Cenetes, and I have to tell you that, for example, 2016 at the moment is one of the best Cenete I ever tasted.
So how does this wine evolve? What happens to it aromatically as it ages?
Now, from the aromatic point of view, this wine has a very great similarity. It looks like being a twin with the Riesling.
Yes.
So there is an evolution that is very close to the Riesling evolution. In some wines, in some vintages, you can have the complexity that only the best wines give you, and especially after a few years, you will have a complexity from the aromatic point of view that obviously lose the fruity part, but increase the complex aroma, the minerality, flavor, taste. And so there is a great evolution, great complexity, and less fruity in terms of nose and taste.
So if someone were to buy a mixed case of these wines, you would suggest that they maybe open a bottle of the Cenete now, then they put the other bottles away and maybe go back to them every 2 years, 3 years, or something like that.
That's going to be nice. This is going to be an exciting trip, an exciting taste to do, comparing the different vintages of Cenete. If you have the opportunity to taste the 2019, the 2020, the 2018, or whatever, yes, and all the different vintages, comparing one with the other is going to be a great tasting.
Superb. Now the third bottle here, something quite different.
The third bottle
is the Anima Lavica.
Wow, this is a special wine. This is a new wine. As you can see from the label, it's a wine that has a label that is speaking to you. It's a label that is telling you what is inside. It's a label that is just trying to tell you what is where it's coming from. Anima Lavica, what does it mean? First of all, the name Anima Lavica means Lavic soul. Okay. Why? Because as I told you, in the valley, we have the western area of the valley that is made of volcanic material. It's made of Ignimbrite campana. And this material, this soil is basically a different soil, a soil that gives to the wine something different. If you taste the two wines, if you compare the color of the two wines, or of the three wines, if you want, the third wine, Anima Lavica, has a different color, has a lighter color.
Yes.
Look at the color. The color is lighter. Yep. The color is brighter and lighter. So you're talking about a Falanghina that is coming from the same area. It's coming from the same microclimate. It's coming from the same winery. Everything is the same, but the soil. The soil is different. And the soil makes the difference. So what's happening in this Falanghina? This Falanghina, because of that particular soil, has a different ripening process.
Yes.
Has a different evolution in terms of acidity. The acidity of this Falanghina is more balanced. So you have a pH that is a little lower than the other because of the soil, but the acidity is still lower. Usually the pH, the lower pH makes an high acidity. In this specific case, because of this soil, you have a lower pH, but a low acidity. So what's happening? It's happening that in the mouth, you will have a balance that is not made by the alcohol and the body of the wine, but is made by a wider acidity. So an acidity that is less sharp and more wide. Can you feel it in the mouth, tasting the wines?
It's a much more, would it be fair to say that it's a much more delicate style of wine than the two that we had previously? And it shows a different side of Falanghina entirely. It's allowing some of the more nuanced aspects of the variety to come through on glass. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, this Falanghina was really exciting for me to produce this Falanghina, starting from the first selection of the vineyards. Mm-hmm. And I was so shocked when we first made the must and then the wine, because I couldn't really realize that the two wines were so different. The two wines were expressing two different styles.
Yes.
And that was so exciting to me, because I couldn't really realize until I could see in the glass that just a few meters of distance, of difference, but with different soil, made such a different wine. So the elegance of the Anima Lavica is completely different. There is a different elegance. There is a different nose, because we have less fruity expression. We have more floral expression. We have more, how do you say, I cannot find the word. We have more floral. We are a different complexity, but with less fruity. So the nose is different. And when you put this wine in the mouth, you will realize that the taste is different.
Yes.
So you just make a question to yourself, how is it possible? The answer is in the label. Different soil. The soil you can see in that particular label, in that specific label, will tell you why this wine is so different. There's no other explanation. There's no winemaking techniques. There's no variety. There's no microclimate. There's no vintage. There's the soil. The soil is the real reason why the two wines are so different.
It's a very interesting order that we've been tasting these wines, because we started off with the first wine, the Del Sagno, which is it's quite a it's a ripe wine. It's very giving. It's very generous, and then we move up to the Sonete, and it's much more focused, and incredibly elegant, but it still has that power for sure. But this last wine, it is almost like feather-light delicacy that comes through, and it shows you perhaps some of the more gentle aspects of the Falanghina grape. I always think about food and about how I would pair all three of these, where they would sit at my dinner table. The first Falanghina there, I could easily have by itself. It's very, very enjoyable just as a sipping wine, or perhaps with hors d'oeuvre or canapé. The second is a very serious wine indeed. And it could go head to head with some quite serious dishes at the dinner table.
For sure.
But with this third wine, it's one of those wines that I love to try and pair with. The delicacy calls for a dish that is delicate in itself. So for me, I'm immediately thinking about a very gently poached piece of fish, perhaps, with some very, very delicate herbs put on there. And that's definitely where I'd be going with this. In your experience, I mean, you've gone all over the world to so many different restaurants, tasting your wines. Where would you put these three wines at the dinner table yourself? What have been the most successful pairings that you have seen? And perhaps you can tell us the worst pairings you've had with them.
Now, the thing is that, as you said, it's easy to use the first Falanghina, what we call Falanghina del Sagno Ianare, to use while you are talking, like an aperitif.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not a wine that you need to pair with food. It's a wine that you could drink. You can easily drink while you're talking about wine, while you're talking about something else.
Well,
It's
I
a
finished
wine
the glass, so yes, it definitely.
yeah, that's the
works.
point.
Yeah.
It's a wine that is going down without you realize it. At the end, you see the glass that's empty. You feel like, I would like some more. Can I have another glass? So it's a wine that it's easy to pair with food, but it's easier to drink on its own.
Right.
So it's really, this is the real expression of this wine, and the equilibrium that it has, it's really helping us to let people drink this wine, to let people enjoy this wine without thinking too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about what we did, the pairing that we are doing with the first Falanghina, but especially with another Falanghina that we are not tasting now, that is the sparkling Falanghina. So the sparkling Falanghina or the first Falanghina we tasted, they're also very nice to pair with the pizza.
Yes, yeah, I can see
it's
that.
Something that we maybe don't usually do, because it's not so common to pair pizza and wine. Usually we don't really do that, but we should. There are some pizza made in the right way, let me say, paired with this Falanghina, that it's so nice. It's easy to pair, to have this pairing, and the combination usually is so good. What about the Cenete? Cenete, it's, as you said, it's an important wine. It's a serious wine, and Cenete needs, in my point of view, the right pasta, or eventually the right meat, talking about white meats, made with with a nice elegance. Mm-hmm. So it's you cannot have a meat that is too full of ingredients and so on. You need the elegance, because in this condition, the Falanghina Cenete will be the right pairing with the food. The wine and the food won't fight, but will be in the perfect combination. So I would suggest like a white meat, if I could say white meat in English.
Yeah, it does. I know exactly where you're going. Yes.
A white meat, which is, in my point of view, the right pairing. What about the last wine?
I'm thinking, just let me interject for a second. I'm actually getting very hungry right now, speaking about food. And I was thinking, perhaps what I'm going to try with this second wine is basically a braised rabbit, but braised in Falanghina, with some herbs. So rabbit's one of my favorite things to cook. But instead of it being in the traditional, I do a kind of lapin au vin, but doing it with white wine as opposed to red wine. And I think that would work a treat with that particular wine.
Yeah, I think that is going to be a nice pairing. We should try that, isn't it?
Yeah. Next time you're here. I'm very curious as to where you feel the Anima Lavica would sit at the dinner table.
Now, Anima Lavica is a wine that really need to think about the pairing. It's not a wine that you can say, okay, let's try this Falanghina. You need to think about the food. You need to think about the wine. It's a perfect combination. It's not simple to do the pairing, because the elegance of this wine is very important. So it's if you pair it with a food that is too generous, you will lose the wine.
Yes.
Okay, so you need to be very precise. I usually think about fish. Because it's easier with the fish, if you manage in the right way, to have more, how do you say, a delicate taste. Okay, but obviously it depends on where you are in the world. In Campania, it's going to be simple. If you move to the coast, if you select the right fish, if you cook it. How do you say? We say alla brace. I mean, on the fire. I mean, very simple.
Grilled, yeah.
So yeah, very simple, and you will have a mix that is just a pairing that is just perfect. Obviously, you need to select the right fish. You need to select the right. You need to cook in the right way to have the perfect pairing. So it's complex, but in my point of view, it's always the fish that could be the right thing.
Well, I'm absolutely astounded at the variations between these three different expressions of Falanghina. And I'm fascinated with the way that your cooperative has been mapping these different terroirs and making marvelous examples of this very underrated grape variety. Thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. Great to see you once again. I could talk about Falanghina all day with you.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for talking about Falanghina. I hope to see you in Sannio.
That would be absolutely
fantastic.
Guardiense. Thank you very much, Marco. Take care for now.
Thank you for your time.